Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, September the 25th. Tropical storm Helene has continued to intensify on the verge of becoming a Category 1 hurricane. It is just about to clip the coastal region of the Yucatan Peninsula, and then it'll spill out over into the southern Gulf of Mexico. All indications are it will rapidly intensify over the next 24 to 36 hours or so, very likely becoming a major hurricane, which is a classification of Category 3 or higher. It certainly has an outside chance of reaching Category 4, even Category 5 status, the way it looks right now. It is certainly not going to weaken by going over the landmass of the Yucatan Peninsula. Again, just clipping it, and very soon will spill out over into the very warm waters of the southern Gulf of Mexico. It looks like landfall still around the Big Bend region of Florida late tomorrow, early tomorrow night. But it will be a large storm, so it will have a wide impact, not just in and around the landfalling area, but up and down the Florida coastline, certainly all the way down to Tampa, have to become prepared for this particular system. After landfall, it will continue on a general north to northeast track right over Georgia, and I really think Georgia will be hit real hard by this particular system. So, of course, Florida will be experiencing some significant impact, but so will the state of Georgia, the way it looks right now. It then moves into that, becomes increasingly influenced by that strong high-pressure ridge to the north, and will not be able to make it all the way into the northeastern part of the nation, although some of its moisture field looks like now to me it will advance into at least portions of the mid-Atlantic region. Now let's take a look here at the latest satellite imagery loop. Remember, a couple of mornings ago we had kind of two different disjointed areas of showers and thunderstorms. They consolidated yesterday into one area, and now you have that classic symmetrical look starting to shape up of a strong tropical storm, which it is right now, and should very well become a hurricane Category 1 within hours here. And again, the next 24 to 36 hours, it will show some rapid intensification all the way up to major level, maybe even Cat 4 or 5. Here is the Yucatan Peninsula right here of Mexico, western tip of Cuba. It is, for the most part, sliding through that narrow waterway area between those two areas of land. Again, the center may just clip the coastal region of the Yucatan Peninsula, but then it'll move out over the southern Gulf of Mexico, where sea surface temperatures are very warm indeed. Well, here's the very latest official storm track by NOAA's National Hurricane Center. They're based in Miami, and for the most part, I agree with their entire scenario here. Again, it looks like it should reach hurricane status shortly. I think the latest observation at 4 a.m. had maximum sustained winds 75 miles per hour. Only needs to go up another 10 to reach Category 1 hurricane status. Then likely intensifying into Category 3, potentially even Cat 4 or 5. Would not rule that out as a possibility here. And here is the Big Bend region of Florida. Looks like landfall probably late Thursday afternoon into early evening, give or take a couple of hours there. And then notice it maintains quite a bit of strength into the state of Georgia. I think one of the perhaps an undertold story of this right now anyway is the big impact that I unfortunately expect to see in the state of Georgia with some hurricane force wind gusts and some tremendous rainfall as well. We'll take a look at some forecast maps of both of those, the rainfall amounts and the wind gusts for the duration of the storm. It then starts to run into that upper level block over central Canada with very, very strong high pressure situated over central and eastern part of Canada. As a result, this system will not be able to continue on a northeast track into the northeastern part of the U.S. Instead, it will kind of do a dance around another trough. There's another trough moving in this fashion, and we've talked about this. I've posted about this, the Fujiwara effect, where two lows tend to repel each other, at least for a while. So this system will in fact loop back around, ultimately dissipate. The tropical low itself will kind of dissipate and become absorbed into this incoming upper level trough, and the result will be a strong upper level trough later in the upcoming weekend right over this part of the nation. But again, instead of turning to the north and east, it will be blocked by that strong ridge to the north and loop back around into the middle Mississippi Valley region. Well, let's take a look at the NAM model right now, and then we'll take a look at the GFS forecast model as well as the Canadian forecast model. But this is from the 06Z run of the conventional version of the NAM model, and what we're seeing here predicted are the maximum wind gusts throughout the duration of this storm. Again, it looks like landfall somewhere in this region right in here, the Big Bend region of Florida. Again, it will become a large storm, so it will have an impact quite a distance away from where the center actually makes landfall. Be on guard, be preparing all the way down to Tampa, Clearwater, St. Petersburg. The storm surge we talked about yesterday is usually most significant on the right side of where it makes landfall in a case like this where it is moving north to northeast. In other words, if landfall is right here, the worst of the storm surge will be right in this area right here. Indeed, be on the lookout for that along that portion of Florida's Gulf Coast. The reason the right side of is the most susceptible to storm surge is because the storm is advancing in this fashion. It's moving pretty rapidly to the north and northeast. So this becomes kind of an additive effect on the east side where the wind flow is also pushing that water into land, whereas on the west side you have the winds that flow counterclockwise around lows, kind of helping to push water away from the coast. So again, you have the additive effect of the forward speed of the storm on the right side of where it actually makes landfall, combined with those winds that are pushing water on to the shore region here. So again, this is the area where storm surge may be quite significant for this upcoming storm. Now, take a look at some of these wind gusts all the way throughout the state of Georgia on this particular run of the NAM model. And even if the NAM is not the best of models, this sends some red flags that there will be hurricane force winds all the way up through the state of Georgia. So Florida, of course, significantly impacted, as will be the state of Georgia, unfortunately. And it looks like this kind of mimics that track of the low to the north and west as it reaches the Tennessee Valley and ultimately dissipates out over the middle Mississippi Valley region. Now let's take a look at the precipitation amounts, and again, the state of Georgia going to be hit hard here. Look at some of these rainfall totals from the 06Z of the NAM model here, as much as nearly a foot, and not too far away from Atlanta, 6 to 12 inches in portions of Georgia. Of course, significant rainfall across the Florida peninsula as well. So again, we have some very, very heavy rainfall pushing well inland here as the system kind of interacts with a frontal system that is kind of draped across the eastern U.S., so that enhances precipitation possibilities all the way up into the southern Appalachians. And a lot of these higher elevations of upstate Georgia, western part of the Carolinas, can really get hit hard with some upsloping air, maybe as much as a foot of rain in some of these areas. So something else to be on the lookout for over the next 48 to 72 hours or so. Well, now let's kind of walk through the GFS model, and then we'll take a quick look at the Canadian model here. So we're looking at multiple models. First, the NAM, which is more of a smaller scale type of computer forecast model. These are what we call synoptic scale models, more large scale models here, the GFS, and then the Canadian. Here is that incoming upper level trough over the Mississippi Valley region. Not a tropical system at all. This originated up in the northern plains. Really, ultimately, it originated up in Canada, dropping south and east right there as it stands at the beginning of the day here, Wednesday morning on September 25th. Here's a reflection at 500 millibars of what is right now Tropical Storm Helene, likely to become a hurricane in just a few hours. You're clipping the coastal area of the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, we'll move forward here. All these oranges up across Canada represent higher heights than normal, higher pressures than normal. That's your blocking high to the north here. And we'll see this Fujiwara effect right here. Instead of lows kind of combining into one at this particular point in time, they tend to repel each other for a while, kind of do a dance around each other for a while. And the reason it's called Fujiwara effect, which I described on our postings at arcfieldweather.com. A Japanese meteorologist, wrote a paper about this, kind of discovered or certainly highlighted this particular phenomenon over 100 years ago. I believe the paper was published in 1921. And watch as these systems kind of do a loop around each other, just like that. And this is the reflection all the way into Friday of the hurricane. It loops around, takes a turn to the north and west into the Ohio Valley rather than moving up north and east to the Mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. Now, I do believe some moisture will make its way into the Mid-Atlantic region, but this system will move to the north and west, ultimately dissipate and just become absorbed. And by the time we get to Saturday morning, we'll have a vigorous upper level low sitting over the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley region. And look at this block to the north. It continues to impress all the way into the upcoming weekend with very, very strong upper level ridging over Canada. Now, let's take a look at the surface forecast maps. And by the way, right now, computer forecast models are quite consistent with each other in terms of the runs that are 6 hours apart, and quite consistent between one model and another. The GFS, and we'll see here in a moment, Canadian model and the NAM model, pretty consistent with the landfall around the Big Bend region of Florida's Gulf Coast. Here we are beginning the day, and again, there's kind of a weak frontal system draped across the eastern states that enhances rainfall potential up to the north of where the system actually will move. And here we go. By the time we get to the overnight hours, it is undergoing rapid intensification. Let's just back up a little bit. Notice here, 975 millibars, then 966 millibars by tomorrow morning, just 24 hours from right now. And you're starting to get those heavy rain bands moving into the Florida panhandle region. And again, frontal system extends that precipitation, rainfall, all the way up through much of the eastern states, a little bit influenced by the tropical moisture down to the south, but also interacting with the frontal system through the eastern states. Then we go later tomorrow, and here we go, landfall somewhere in that Big Bend region. Certainly stay fully prepared here, get fully prepared all the way from Apalachicola, Tallahassee, all the way down to Tampa, Clearwater, St. Petersburg. And here is this system as of early tomorrow night. This is the forecast map by last night's 0Z run the GFS for 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. That's right around the time of expected landfall, late tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. These isobars, very, very tight. And of course, we just saw a moment ago, hurricane force winds could easily extend all the way up through the state of Georgia with this particular system. It's moving rapidly enough that it won't have time to weaken over land before impacting the state, much of the state of Georgia. Tropical systems, once they move over land, they kind of cut off from that fuel underneath with those very warm sea surface water temperatures over the Gulf of Mexico, for example. Once it moves inland, it loses that buoyancy coming from underneath and weakens. However, if it's a fast-moving system, it'll have less time to weaken, and that's the real concern that I have for all the way up through Georgia, hurricane force winds. And here we go. Look at this. All the way by late tomorrow night into early Friday morning. Just a terrible look to it for the state of Georgia with tremendous rainfall, powerful wind gusts. So again, expect significant impact all the way up through that part of the southeastern states. Then it runs into that roadblock to the north, starts to curve to the south and west. We really have a second low right around this area right here, and here's the tropical low. Again, they're doing this kind of dance around each other for a while in this fashion, the old Fujiwara effect, and where they rotate around, they tend to repel each other for a while. And again, ultimately, this system, the tropical system, will simply dissipate and get fully absorbed by that initial upper level low. We'll see here right now you're kind of ending up with one system by the time we get to the early part of the upcoming weekend. Now again, some of that moisture field does make its way all the way into the middle Atlantic region, but certainly the center of what will remain of Hurricane Helene will not make it into the mid-Atlantic or northeast U.S. because of that very, very strong high pressure, the blocking ridge to the north. Well, let's just wrap up with a look at the Canadian model run from 0Z. Just, again, look at the consistency between it and the GFS and the NAM in that they all tend to have that landfall right around the Big Bend region of Florida. Let's push forward here through the day. Today, again, rapid intensification over the next 24 hours or so into major hurricane status. Again, Cat 3 is very likely. Cat 4 and even Cat 5 on the table with this incoming hurricane. Here we go, a 976 millibar low by early tomorrow night, so a little bit slower than the GFS. This is also the 8 p.m. forecast map, maybe a little bit slower in its landfall, maybe later tomorrow evening, according to this particular model run of the Canadian computer forecast model. Then it moves into Georgia with some tremendous winds and rain overnight tomorrow night into the day on Friday. And again, the southern Appalachians, where you get a lot of this upslope. This is air that is flowing in a counterclockwise fashion around the hurricane, what remains of the hurricane, and all the southern Appalachians, that will be an upsloping type of wind, enhancing the rainfall amounts right in this area right here. So the southern Appalachians can get absolutely deluged with rain with this kind of an upsloping pattern, with its kind of a storm track here. Now let's continue to move forward here. Again, it ultimately moves north and west and kind of dies out and becomes absorbed by that other low. And again, notice some of that moisture field does make its way into the mid-Atlantic region, maybe even into the southern part of New England here late Friday into Saturday. We'll just have to monitor that over the next couple of days. But a very serious situation setting up here with Tropical Storm Helene. Should become a hurricane any moment now, really later this morning or this afternoon. I expect it would be classified as a Category 1 hurricane. Will continue to rapidly intensify over the next 24 to 36 hours or so into major hurricane Category 3 status, or even 4 or 5 on the table here. Likely landfall late tomorrow, early tomorrow night, the Big Bend region of Florida, and then significant impact should extend all the way into throughout much of the state of Georgia as well later tomorrow night into the day on Friday. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.